Oh shit, here we go again.
Awfully brave of Ninja Theory to put Saga in the name of a game, while Microsoft is shutting down studios like I do processes in the task manager whenever my PC slows down. I was waiting for this one for a long time, wanting to tear the new one since I really didn't like the first Hellblade. Maybe I've just gotten old, but while there's a bunch of things to be picky about, in the end the game kinda made me drop my sword and give up. You know, like the time Mom said she wasn't angry at you, just disappointed. In Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, Senua from Hellblade 1 Senua's Sacrifice is still Senua. That is a psychotic Celtic warrior that sees faces in places, hears voices in her head, and hallucinates cannibals as undead. Thanks to her, I now pretend not to see cool sticks as swords, thank you very much. The second game is pretty much the same as the first one, but improved in almost every way, so it's only fair to compare and it helps us see how the creators evolve and learn. Hellblade 2 is still mostly a story-driven walking sim, it's just push forward to progress. Where in real life we go on walks to take a break from gaming, here we do some gaming to take a break from all the walking, same as the first game. Except this time it's also on shrooms and fire because of a higher budget. We start on a boat again and instantly see where all the money went, as this one is proportionately a lot bigger than the first one. We've let ourselves be taken prisoner in an effort to track down and eliminate the slavers that ruined our life, while claiming we're here on a mission against God to save everyone. Like all good games, we start with our mode of transportation crashing. The game takes itself very seriously, so there's no comic relief because mental illness is not something we can joke about. I imagine that's what my therapist would have said if I could ever afford one. This seriousness didn't help with the voices sometimes throwing out really cringeworthy lines. I hope it's bad writing, because if it's not, then I'm really sorry for those suffering from being in a permanent state of trying not to think about manually breathing or swallowing saliva, but being constantly reminded of it by invisible dickheads that no one else can see or hear. Imagine playing a game with 5 obnoxious React streamers doing their thing while sitting right behind you. The whole story is supposed to rely heavily on Senua's psychosis, making her see monsters and gods, but like in the first game, being in a fantasy setting kinda works against that. In addition, Hellblade 2 introduces other characters into the mix that seem to see everything that you see, so the undead monsters and giants aren't just your imagination. The world of Senua's Saga is a series of maps grouped into chapters. They seem one big landmass thanks to a set of fairly impressive transitions imitating putting a camera up a bird's ass. Here we can really appreciate all the work the Unreal Engine 5 is doing to make the landscapes look straight out of National Geographic. I usually don't care about graphical fidelity, but in this case it caught me by surprise because games usually don't look anything like their trailers. But sadly we had to pay for it in some way. I didn't even mind the letterbox. Yes, it's not an ultra-wide resolution if you use my native res and tax 30% of my screen. The game is also locked to 30 FPS on consoles. The company representative said in an interview that it was a conscious decision for a more cinematic experience. Listen, Ninja Theory, you're not 12 and I'm not your mom. We all know the home PC wasn't for homework, but for games and other one-handed activities, okay? This excuse remembers the PlayStation 2 days. There's no benefit in having less frames no matter how you put it. You've cut the frames and you've cut the screen space because the console version would have ran worse than Bloodborne whenever a boss exploded in the goop. That being said, I really enjoyed the more diverse setting with more weird shit going on and the close-ups of Senua's eyes watering up or lips trembling every 20 minutes. Her body looks and moves very realistically. She also looks better than in the first game. No more silly alien-shaped head and dorky face paint. The actress seemed to have gotten better, and all the wonky recordings of real people serving as ghastly visions were replaced with 3 NPCs after Ninja Theory a bit too literally took into account the statistics, claiming that 1 in 4 people suffers from mental disorders. Too bad that from a distance, all the faces look like terrified pleasure dolls. The sound department also got a fat paycheck, and they were doing good work before that. More than on one occasion I've had to pull off my headphones and check if it's not my wife being assaulted in the other room while the music got me bouncing in my chair to the drums.
To taste your blade!
If you've watched the Viking series, you'll recognize the group called Heilung. If you like tribal or northern folk music like me, they'll be very up your alley. I usually groan whenever a game picks out one of the generic Viking samurai knight trinity, so thankfully this one is differently flavored and the Northmen are the enemy. The overall atmosphere is downright oppressive, with only a few moments of relief. The visuals work together with the music and sound to create something really unique. The immersion is enhanced by Ninja Theory's commitment to a rule of no UI elements. You're purposefully blinded, no health bars, no prompts, you just press buttons hoping for the best, or just lie there in the mud for 20 seconds because you didn't know you're supposed to push the box in front of you out of the way. Now imagine a plank cut out of a tree that had one very hungry woodworm in it. That's the world of Senua's Saga. It's a series of maps with a single corridor that sometimes branches out only to end in a dead end that you have to backtrack from. Their only purpose is to show off the environment and extend the game. My relationship with the game's exploration is similar to the one with my father, mostly non-existent. There's two types of collectibles, half of which I've missed after an hour of playtime because the game insists on following a companion and talking instead of looking at rocks. One type is out there in plain sight, while to find the other one, you have to be seeing faces in places like every other normal human being. Both are lore-related audio logs, but they're rooted to the ground, and if you move away, they stop playing. Almost like someone wanted us to stand around while the playtime meter kept running. It also doesn't help that what is considered running in the game should have been the default movement speed with an option to sprint. When we do engage in gameplay, it's either combat or puzzles. The only thing I remembered about the first game was that I really didn't like the fights. They just felt bad. It's better here where the hit impact and animations are improved, even if we still see the fake theater-like slices sometimes. The transitions to the next enemy look really cool and dynamic. They also realized that the system didn't work when there was more than one enemy targeting us, so now the baddies approach us in a nice and orderly fashion one by one. It's functional, nothing more. I wish Ninja Theory would have built on what they had and implemented more moves or systems, but hey, mocap is expensive, I guess. There's also an adaptive difficulty that I guess worked well because I wasn't ever bored out of my mind, but also never struggled too much. Also, no more controversial rotting arm, which would end our save file if we died too much. The enemy variety was akin to that of a gaming convention, mostly dudes that haven't showered in a while, but at least there were enough different weapon varieties and movesets to keep it from getting stale. They even got someone to cosplay a Gollum family reunion! The puzzles are mostly just busy work. Some of it new, some copied from the first game. They start simple, introducing single mechanics and then adding them together into a more complex problem. The level design stink intensifies here the most when you have to backtrack through an entire maze after unlocking a door. The boss fights, and don't be misled by the name, are also puzzles, except simpler. I mean, they got the idea from a 30-year-old shit gaming toy where you just move tracks to avoid incoming obstacles, or move from cover to cover avoiding rhythmic area attacks. There's plenty of articles claiming the game can be finished in 5 hours, and while it took me around 8, I believe them because I was recording, taking notes, and looking around. I mean, there's 11 Steam achievements, and one of them is opening the photo mode, for God's sake. With that said, the price tag is kinda steep. Like, no average person will spend half of their monthly gaming budget on this kind of steep. It feels like the studio got funding for a AAA game and they spent it all on making it pretty instead of longer or more interesting. A classic case of funding being funneled into everything but the gameplay, and as a result, there's not much playing to be had. Hellblade 2 could have been so much more, but as it is, I feel like they would have had more success making it a movie that required headphones like the old 3D films required glasses. And this is what made Mom not angry, but disappointed.
If you liked it, pop over to my Twitch. I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings European time, and throughout the day on the weekends.
Keep warm, keep tight, keep safe, my dudes.